The scorching Afghan sun beat down on forward operating base Sentinel as Captain Sarah Mitchell stepped off the Black Hawk helicopter, her boots hitting the dusty ground with practiced precision. Intelligence reports clutched tightly against her chest. She squinted against the blinding light, taking in the bustling military compound, nestled between jagged mountain ranges. After 3 combat tours and countless intelligence operations, she had learned to read a base like a book within moments of arrival. This wasn't supposed to be a long stay, just 48 hours to deliver critical intelligence on Taliban movements that could change the course of Operation Mountain Viper. The kind of intelligence that saved lives. The kind that had cost lives to obtain. Captain Mitchell adjusted her sidearm and straightened her uniform, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Alongside the oppressive heat, 6 months of covert intelligence gathering had culminated in the files she carried, the locations of 3 high V-value targets and their planned coordinated attacks on coalition forces. Captain Mitchell, a young corporal, approached, saluting crisply. "Colonel Tangersdal is expecting you at command. I'll escort you, Sarah nodded, following the corporal through the maze of concrete barriers and temporary structures. She noticed the sideways glances from Marines and Army personnel as she passed. Female officers weren't uncommon anymore, but intelligence officers with combat decorations still turned heads. The base hummed with pre-mission tension. Soldiers cleaned weapons, checked gear, and spoke in hushed tones. Everyone knew something big was coming, even if the details remained classified. Sarah had seen this atmosphere before. The calm before the storm, the collective breath held before plunging into danger. As they approached the command center, a group of Navy SEALs emerged from the gym, their imposing figures drenched in sweat despite the early hour. Their team leader, Lieutenant James Cooper, was legendary among special forces. 5 deployments, numerous confirmed kills, and a reputation for both brilliance and arrogance in equal measure. "Heads up," the corporal whispered. "Lieutenant Cooper's team just got in from a night op. They're running hot after losing a target." Sarah nodded, almost imperceptibly. She'd dealt with frustrated operators before. The intelligence community and combat units often existed in uneasy alliance, each dependent on the other, but separated by different perspectives on the same war. Inside the command center, the air conditioning hit her like a wall of relief. Tactical maps covered the walls, and communications officers monitored radio traffic from ongoing operations. Colonel Merrill Tangersdal, the base commander and one of the most respected officers in the theater, stood bent over a table, studying satellite imagery. Captain Mitchell, Colonel Tangersdal, straightened, extending her hand. "Your timing couldn't be better. We've got a situation developing." Before Sarah could respond, the door swung open behind her, and Lieutenant Cooper strode in with 2 of his team members. His eyes locked onto Sarah, taking in her intelligence insignia and captain's bars. With a quick dismissive glance, Colonel Cooper nodded to Tangersdal, completely ignoring Sarah's presence. "We need to talk about last night's intel failure." Sarah felt the tension in the room spike. She recognized the look in Cooper's eyes. She'd seen it before from operators who believed intelligence officers spent the war safely behind desks while they risked their lives. Little did he know that the scar running along her left side told a different story, a reminder of an ambush outside Kandahar that had claimed the lives of 3 of her team members. What should have been a routine intelligence briefing was about to become something else entirely. Sarah could feel it in the air like the electric charge before a thunderstorm. "With all due respect, Colonel, the intel was garbage." Lieutenant Cooper's voice cut through the command center like a combat knife. "My men risked their lives based on coordinates that put our target 2 clicks from his actual position." Colonel Tangersdal's expression remained neutral, but her eyes flashed with warning. "Lieutenant, no, I need to say this." Cooper turned his attention to Sarah, sizing her up with undisguised skepticism. "Who's this? Another analyst who's never seen a firefight sending my men into ambushes." The room fell silent. Even the communications officer stopped typing, the tension palpable as Sarah met Cooper's gaze without flinching. "Captain Sarah Mitchell, Naval Intelligence, she replied evenly. And I've seen my share of firefights, Lieutenant. Cooper scoffed, a dismissive smirk playing at his lips. What's your rank again? Captain? I'm just curious what qualifies you to send my men into a hot zone based on week-old intelligence. The mockery in his voice when he said captain was unmistakable. Several of the junior officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Lieutenant Cooper. Colonel Tangersdall's voice cracked like a whip. That's enough. But Cooper wasn't finished. No disrespect intended, but I lost Ramirez last month because of faulty intelligence. I won't lose another man because some desk jockey with captain's bars thinks they understand ground realities. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. But years of operating in hostile territory had taught her to control her reactions. She'd faced Taliban interrogators with less visible emotion than she showed now. The intelligence wasn't wrong, Lieutenant, she said quietly. Your target moved because he was tipped off. We have a leak. The accusation hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Cooper's face darkened. Are you suggesting one of my men? I'm not suggesting anything yet, Sarah interrupted, placing her files on the table and spreading out surveillance photos, but these were taken 6 hours before your operation. And this, she pointed to a satellite image, shows unusual communication patterns from this base to a known Taliban intermediary. Colonel Tangersdall leaned forward, studying the evidence. Captain Mitchell has been running a counterintelligence operation for the past 3 months. That's why she's here. Cooper's jaw tightened. So, you're investigating us? My men bleed and die out there while you hunt for imaginary traitors. Sarah's composure finally cracked. I carried Staff Sergeant Anna Reyes 6 miles with a bullet in my side after our convoy was ambushed outside Kandahar. Don't lecture me about bleeding, Lieutenant. The room went deadly quiet. Colonel Tangersdall straightened, her voice cutting through the silence. Captain Mitchell was awarded the Silver Star for that action. 3 of her team died that day because someone leaked their route. Cooper's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, reassessing the woman standing before him before anyone could speak. An explosion rocked the base, the concussive force rattling the windows of the command center. Alarms blared as dust rained from the ceiling. Contact! North perimeter breach, a voice shouted over the radio. That's impossible, Cooper said, already moving toward the door. The north side is a sheer cliff face. Sarah grabbed her sidearm, checking the magazine. Unless someone provided the access codes to the sensor grid. Their eyes met in mutual understanding as a second explosion hit closer, shaking the building's foundation. Captain, stay here and secure the intelligence, Cooper ordered, his team already gearing up. Not a chance, Lieutenant Sarah replied, grabbing a tactical vest from the wall. Your team needs every gun, and I need to identify our leak before they destroy the evidence. Colonel Tangersdall was already coordinating the base defense. Mitchell's right. We've got a firefight and a mole hunt happening simultaneously. Outside, gunfire erupted in staccato bursts. The base was under attack from an enemy that shouldn't have been able to get close, much less breach their defenses. Stay behind me, Cooper said grudgingly as they moved toward the door. Sarah chambered around in her pistol. I've got your 6, Lieutenant. But when this is over, we're going to have a conversation about respect. As they stepped into chaos, neither knew that the real test of their courage was just beginning. The firefight had lasted 3 hours, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the gunfire. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood at the center of the command post, blood-spattered and exhausted as the last of the Taliban fighters retreated into the mountains. Her uniform was torn at the shoulder where a bullet had grazed her, but she remained standing, her eyes fixed on the man kneeling before her. Major Alan Davis, Colonel Tangersdall's executive officer, hung his head as 2 Marines secured his hands behind his back. The encrypted satellite phone they'd found hidden in his quarters had been the final piece of evidence, confirming what Sarah had suspected for weeks. Why? Colonel Tangersdall asked, her voice barely containing her fury and disappointment. 15 good soldiers died today because of you. Davis said nothing, his face a mask of defiance even in defeat. Lieutenant Cooper entered the command center. His tactical gear covered in dust and blood, some his own, most belonging to others. His eyes met Sarah's across the room. A silent acknowledgement passing between them. During the attack, they'd fought back to back, covering each other as they moved from building to building, hunting the infiltrators while simultaneously closing in on the traitor. The north perimeter is secure, Colonel Cooper reported. We've got 17 wounded being treated at the medical tent. 4. Critical and specialist Rivera, Sarah asked, her voice steady despite knowing the answer. Cooper's jaw tightened. Didn't make it. She bled out before we could get her to the medics. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Rivera had been the one who spotted Davis sending signals from the communications array, and she'd paid for her vigilance with her life. When the young specialist had radioed her discovery to Sarah, Davis had shot her and triggered the attack as a diversion. Get him out of my sight, Colonel Tangersdall ordered, and the Marines dragged Davis away. As the command center emptied, Cooper approached Sarah, offering her a canteen of water. That was some shooting back there, Captain. Where'd you learn to handle a rifle like that? Same place you did, Lieutenant. Necessity. She took a long drink, wincing as the movement pulled at her injured shoulder. Cooper nodded toward her wound. You should get that looked at after the others, she replied. I've had worse. An uncomfortable silence fell between them, filled with unspoken apologies and newfound respect. I was wrong about you, Cooper finally said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. What I said earlier was based on incomplete intelligence, Sarah finished for him, the ghost of a smile crossing her face. A tactical error we both know can be costly. The base loudspeaker crackled to life, announcing the all clear as the sun began to set over the mountains. Outside, soldiers were already rebuilding, tending to the wounded and honoring the fallen. Colonel Tangersdall returned, her face etched with the weight of command. Captain Mitchell, the intelligence you gathered not only exposed our leak, but identified 3 more Taliban cells operating in the region. CENTCOM wants you to brief them personally. Sarah nodded, though her eyes drifted to the tactical map where red pins marked the locations of today's casualties. And Lieutenant Cooper, the colonel, continued, your team's actions saved this base. The general sends his personal commendation. Cooper straightened. It was a joint effort. Captain Mitchell's intelligence and combat support made the difference. The colonel looked between them, a knowing expression crossing her face. I'm putting you both in for commendations, the kind that come with promotions. As the colonel left to coordinate the recovery efforts, Cooper extended his hand to Sarah. Next time you're running an OP in my AO, Captain, I'd be honored to have you on the team. Sarah took his hand, her grip firm. I'll hold you to that, Lieutenant. The next morning, as the base gathered to honor their fallen comrades, Captain Mitchell stood at attention beside Lieutenant Cooper and his team. When her name was called to speak about Specialist Rivera's sacrifice, she stepped forward, her uniform crisp despite the bandage visible beneath it. The entire base fell silent as she spoke, not just out of respect for the dead, but in recognition of the quiet courage that had saved them. All, the kind that didn't need to announce its rank to command respect. As the bugler played taps, Cooper leaned slightly toward Sarah. They'll remember this day, he said softly. Sarah watched the flag being folded with precision and dignity. Not for us, she replied. For them. And in that moment, rank meant nothing. Only the bond forged in fire between those who had faced death together and emerged changed but unbroken.